let's begin by starting up Mudbox and see what happens. So if we go ahead and start Mudbox, and let's just go ahead and I'm going to create a new scene to bring this window up. You'll get this welcome window. There's a few little links off to the side that will give you kind of a little overview of some of the tools in Mudbox. In the middle, there is a section that allows you to click on any of these starting meshes. So these are all pieces of geometry that come with Mudbox that you can use to start up. And then if you've worked in Mudbox before, you'll have a list of your recent files over here. If you'd like to load one of these up, you can simply click on the object and it'll load up into your scene. In addition, if you'd like to bring in any of the geometry from that list, once you get into your scene, you can go to Create, Mesh, and then you'll see the list here. To actually move around our object, we're going to hit Alt, left mouse button to orbit around, Alt middle mouse to track across, and Alt right mouse button to dolly in and out. In addition, you can use the View Cube. If you've used other Autodesk products, you might be familiar with the View Cube, but it just kind of gives you an indication of the view you're looking at this from, and then you can click on the View Cube itself, and you can click on different sides of the cube if you'd like to really quickly rotate between different views. You can do that there. So that's another way to navigate around our scene. You'll see in the object list our geometry listed here, in addition to lights, materials, cameras. All the things in our scene are going to be listed here in our object list. So the first thing that we want to do to create our project is to bring in some geometry. And it's very unlikely that the geometry here in Mudbox is going to work exactly as is for your particular project. So let's actually bring in a separate file. So I'm going to select this, right click on it, delete the head. And now there's a couple of ways that we can get this geometry in. If you have, let's say, Maya, or if we come up here, Maya, 3ds Max, or Softimage, you can send the geometry over very quickly. So if I open up Maya, you can see that I have this little boxy geometry built here, okay? So I've purposely not done too much to the shape of this. I've left it kind of square. It's been created out of cube. I've just kind of pulled out the main shape. So if it has feet, if it has legs, these little antennas, you can build those out. But don't really worry too much about the shape. This particular piece of geometry is based on a sketch. So we want to build something like that. We're going to do this from start to finish here on your first day in Mudbox. So we've got a lot to do. But so the geometry can be very, very rough. And as I said, if you've got this in something like Maya, you can go just to File, and you can say Send to Mudbox, Send as a new scene, and that'll transfer that over. Now, if you don't have Maya or one of those other applications, you can simply, in Mudbox, go to File, and let's go to Import. We'll navigate to our project files, and go into the Referenced Files folder, and look for basegeometry.obj. Okay, this OBJ is a very common file format that will allow us to transfer geometry into a bunch of different kinds of applications. And so let's go ahead and click on that, and we'll say Open. Now it's going to give us little warnings depending on what's going on with our mesh. In this case, it's giving us a warning that it has an incomplete UV set. Now UVs are something that we'll talk about later, but it relates to how the textures are going to be applied to the geometry. So in this case, we'll go ahead and say Keep this mesh. And here you can see this is basically the same piece of geometry that we looked at there in Maya. Very rough shape, but the polygons are there, and that's really all we need to begin working here in Mudbox. Okay, you can see it over here. It's just called Mesh. If we want to rename this, we can right click, go to Rename Object. I can call this something else, in this case Creature. And it tells us how many subdivision levels we have here. Right now we have 1. So the key to sculpting our geometry in Mudbox are going to be these the subdivision levels, rather. So if you look at the resolution of this, there's only so much shaping we can do. I mean, we can move the existing points around, but we can't create any sort of facial features or anything like that because there's just not enough points. So what we want to do is subdivide our mesh. So in order to do that, we can go to Mesh, Add Subdivision Level, or we can hit Shift-D. So hitting Shift-D will add a new level. It'll give us a little indicator here, and then also let us know here that we're on level 2. You can also get some information about your levels down here at the bottom. If we hit Shift-D again, that will subdivide again. So think of this as quads, each quad's being separated into 4 quads, then those quads are separated into 4 until you get millions of polygons if you get up into the higher subdivision levels. Okay, if we'd like to be able to see, right now all of the faces are selected, so I'm going to go ahead and click off of this. And then if we want to see the wireframe, we can right click out here in the view and turn off wireframe. So sometimes we might want to have that, sometimes we might not. So you can go in there and use some, change some of the display options here. So once we create new subdivision levels, it's going to be a great idea to be able to move up and down those levels. That function is going to be accessed using page down on your keyboard to go down levels. We can go all the way back down to our first level, and page up will take us up to the highest level. And you can see that it gives us an indicator here that this is the highest level. So if we wanted to add more detail, high res detail, we would have to subdivide this again. Okay, so page up, page down, you can navigate through existing subdivision levels, while Shift D will allow you to add new subdivision levels. Okay, so once you've got your geometry in here from however you've created it, in this case we're just importing it from the project files, the next thing that we can do is begin to add some shape to the low res, because we really left it very, very raw coming out of our 3D application. And so Mudbox has a great tool for very kind of intuitively shaping our mesh. Okay, we're going to use one of the sculpt tools, and it's called the grab tool. So let's go ahead and come into the next lesson and use this tool to very quickly shape our model, make it a little bit closer to the final shape that we want before we actually start sculpting in some detail. So let's go ahead and do that in the next lesson.